Cool.
Okay, spoiler edition. So if you're still with us, let's discuss Daniel, since we were kind of already talking about him, because that kind of encompasses everything else. So essentially, Daniel interferes with Maricita's miracle when he tells her that he loves her. And as a result, he, like, unleashes his darkness, and it manifests in just blindness?
Yeah.
Okay. So he goes away into the desert to deal with this on his own. He doesn't know if he's going to die or if he's just going to be like this soldier that he had previously seen, which we can get into, and some other people who have just left the ranch without receiving their last miracle. So he goes away to protect his family. Let's talk about how he was orphaned. Go ahead.
So his father was the saint, and then this was back in 1944, and during World War II, and I did not realize this was real. Sometimes I think Steve Rogers just come up with stuff out of her ass, but no, it's real. So there were some German POWs in Colorado working on a beet farm, and BEET, and that really happened.
Never mind. Yeah, go ahead. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so they meet this soldier, and he needs help because the Germans, they're wearing shorts, and because they're like, oh, it's nice here, but they don't realize that it gets cold, and so they're in these shorts, and he's carrying this baby, and he's like, Daniel's father's like, I'm going to help the soldier, and the soldier says, what is it, BT? Bitta, which
please. It means please.
It means please?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, when I did Google, it said you're welcome.
No.
Okay, well, that really screwed me up.
Yeah,
okay, that makes much more
is
sense.
please in German.
Okay. Yeah. I was like, he said you're welcome. That could totally mean something totally different. Like, that is sinister. Okay. Yeah. So he says please, and Daniel's father helps him, and he turns into a fox. And fox are just... I looked up foxes.
Yeah, I wrote that down, but I can't find it in my notes.
It just means sly... I can't remember. Anyway, so he turns into... I don't think that really means anything. It turns into a fox, and then the baby he's carrying... Wait.
Doesn't the baby turn into wood?
The baby has dragon scales.
Oh, yeah.
So he helps the soldier when the soldier has his miracle, his first miracle, which is turning into a fox, he inadvertently helps him by taking the baby. And therefore, he interferes with him. And so then his wife, who is 9 months pregnant with Daniel, touches him. And even if you're not a Soraya by blood, if you love a Soraya, you are also infected.
You take their darkness,
and they turned into wood. But I'm not sure why wood.
Yeah, wood, I have no idea. But in my notes, I remember writing down that this was a very obvious allusion to the biblical story of Lot and his wife turning into salt when they're leaving, like, Sodom and Gomorrah, because they're turning back to, like look at something one more time, which is what she did to Benjamin. That was his name. And her name was Loyola. But why wood? I'm not sure. It could just make sense regionally. I don't know.
Alright.
I didn't look into that. But the whole scene of, like, him, like, slowly turning into wood and then her turning into wood, and she was pregnant with Daniel at the time. So then the next scene is literally, who was it, Francisco or somebody?
I think so.
Taking an axe and hacking this baby that somehow didn't turn into wood because it wasn't born, so it didn't have any, like, darkness or anything yet.
Well, maybe that's what the discussion of the horsemen. If you don't have humanity, do you have darkness? Oh, right. My God.
Right. So Daniel doesn't have any darkness yet because he literally hasn't been born. So he was still a baby inside of his wooden mother. And that was the weirdest scene. God. I was like, holy crap.
So they hack him out of her womb, and he's alive.
And he immediately becomes, by default, a saint, but somebody else does it while he's growing up. That was weird.
It was good, though.
It was good.
So, that's how Daniel came to be. And we've been, like you said, he was just kind of had this sainthood thrust upon him, and he was just this bad kid.
Right.
Until he found his purpose, I suppose.
And I liked that his darkness was, kind of admitting to... Well, like, his his second miracle came about after he like admitted and accepted someone else's love, which I don't think he'd ever really done before. I think he was blind to how people cared for him. And the rest of this book is everyone from Beatrice to Maricita to Joaquin doing all these crazy things to help Daniel out of his darkness or through it, or stay alive. So I thought that was really cool too, because he and Maricita fall in love and happily ever after.
Yeah.
And Maricita receives her second miracle when she admits to loving Daniel. So that was really beautiful. I like how that, and then the second she admits that, the rain stops falling. So that was cool. Something as simple as that, you kind of, I was like, thinking too much. What does their miracle have to be?
And I think that's what the pilgrims are. They're either thinking too much, and when you're reading the story, you're like, why? It's pretty obvious what your problem is. Fix it. But in real life, people are very self-aware at sometimes, but they can't. Either they refuse to fix their problem, they get comfortable, or they don't know how, or they're afraid to. And this is how these people were. It's like, they're here for months and months and months because they just, for whatever reason, they can't fix it. And they do eventually fix it through music. Yeah. That's how Joaquin's purpose is. He helps them he does actually become a DJ in general, and he helps the people do their second miracle through lyrics. So the Sorayas are not helping them, like, technically. They're doing it through lyrics.
Yeah. Through someone else. Yeah, that was really cool.
But they have to have help, and they get help through, just like, if you need to get over your demons, sometimes you need help, and this is how they got their help.
So the story kind of like plods on until we really get to this Daniel scene, because this Daniel overcoming his darkness is really the arc of the story. But it happens at the end, like the very end.
Pages.
Yeah, so everybody goes out into the desert, and then Beatrice and Maricita are there, and they discover that Daniel has died. But that there's this owl flying around that has Daniel's eyes, face, and like breath or something. And so essentially Beatrice realizes, like, this is the point of life, like helping people, connecting with them, pulling them out of their darkness, pulling yourself out of your darkness, and all that happens in an instant with this like weird owl situation. And she's able to take Daniel's darkness and then give it back to him, and he comes back alive, and it was bizarre. Yeah. It was like, what?
Yeah. I think my favorite part of that scene, which was when Beatrice comes upon Daniel and Maricita, he's dead. And he is in her lap, and she said, she was like, how come you're not getting infected by the darkness? And she says, well, he's already dead, which is horrible. And then she said, the owl took his eyes, and I tried to catch his breath before that got taken.
That was so sad. Oh my God. I know.
And she and Beatrice took his breath from the owl and gave it back to him. Right. But not like the traditional CPR way. Like, she like literally blew it back into his nostrils.
But now Beatrice
she's becoming blind. And so she has to get the owls to come to her, because they won't come to her. Every time she approaches them, before she touches Daniel, they take a step back. And so she realizes that I need to get a miracle, because they flock to people who need miracles. So the only way it's going to come to her is if she has the darkness in her. So she touches Daniel, gets the darkness, they approach her, and she takes his eyes and everything and gives it back to him. And then she's like, oh, well, somebody's got to help me. And then here comes Pete. And she has to admit that I do have feelings and I do love you. And so then he kind of heals her. So,
and because Pete wasn't there for a miracle, he didn't have to worry about anything coming on him. And he was able to,
technically, he loves her, though.
I know, but he wasn't ever there to receive anything. Okay. Like, there's another kind of theme in this book, like, if you want to receive heaven, you're gonna have to pay. He wasn't there for that. So nothing, I told Dawn yesterday, he was kind of like this, like, rubber in, like, a lightning bolt. Like, he stopped that kind of current, if you will, of the darkness, because it would have had to go to someone else and someone else and someone else, and that never would have stopped. So I thought that was really cool. Like, she needed him, literally, and, just because she loved him. Yeah. Yeah. I thought that was a great ending. The family comes together, the parents that were kind of on the verge of separating realize that they've both been wrong, and that was really cool too. And I don't know, yeah, the whole thing with the rose, we're still not sure, but
Yeah.
it was just his change of direction, I think, because he was the one refusing to communicate with her and all that stuff. So I thought it was a good book, but I don't know, it was really hard to read.
Yeah, so after discussing with you, I am going to up it to a 5.
Okay.
Because my only dislike was that I don't think it was enough story. But after discussing with you, I think that it was a sufficient amount of story. And everything was there for a reason, and it all kind of came full circle. And I think it had one overarching theme, which I liked. It wasn't convoluted. You understood what was happening.
Yeah.
And characters were great. The setting was great. I think I'm gonna up it to a 5.
Yeah, there's a lot in this book.
My first 5 of the year.
Ooh.
Oh my God! It came April 25th. I gave like several 5s last year in like March or February even.
Yeah, it's been
so,
a doozy
yay.
for 5,
yay for me.
I suppose. Yeah, this is a great book. It has all the merit in the world, but you have to be willing to sit and take it apart and really, really read, and it was hard to get through for me.
I like to do that. I like
do too.
To sit and pick books apart.
But at the same time, I like to just read.
That. I know.
Sometimes I like to just
sit
and read. But that's not this author.
Some books, yeah.
Yes, that's
going
not
into
Steve
some
Utter.
books, I know immediately if this is going to be brain candy.
Yeah.
And I know if I'm going to have to really sit down and think about it. And I knew kind of going in that I was going to have to think about it based on her last book.
I would to some extent
yeah,
because even the Raven Boys, there is so much, starting in book 2 mostly, there's so much you have to pull apart. And that book 2 kind of has a very similar feel to this book, I thought. But I was not prepared for this level.
Yeah.
Holy crap. But
I wasn't either, but I read something kind of similar, not similar in like theme, but just similar in like amount of work, and it was Anna and the Swallow Man. That book is short, and you're like, oh, I'm gonna breeze through this. Ooh, nope.
Yeah.
And I still have yet to have someone sit down with me and talk to me about it. And once that happens, I will up it to a 5. But I haven't had that happen yet. One person is reading it, and hopefully she'll hurry up and finish it so we can talk about it.
Yeah, it's like the old adage. Yeah. Good things come in small packages.
So, like, I think, like, the Passion of Dosa, it happened to me. I needed someone to explain that ending to me. And once I was like, okay, I get it. Good. And the same thing with Bone Gap. Once somebody explained that ending to me, I was like, okay,
you have to discuss this book.
Yes.
You've got to.
Yes. So read it with friends.
Whether with yourself when you just reread your notes, or I definitely recommend, like, jotting little notes to yourself down when you read this book. Oh, yeah. All right. That was a lengthy discussion.
One thing, we didn't talk about the racist part.
Oh, shoot.
All right. So we'll talk about it right now.
Yeah.
So on Goodreads, there are people complaining, saying that it's racially insensitive probably because Steve Otter is not Mexican and her characters are Mexican. And someone complained about the Bichorrero, and his Joaquin's DJ name is Diablo, and that's blah. It's like, come on, people.
This person is reading way too much into it.
She hasn't even read the book.
Also, the person is also not a Latino. This was a white person, and she hasn't read the book yet, and she's just claiming that Steve Otter doesn't know how to write diverse characters. And I think hopefully once that person reads the book, they'll see that that's not in fact the case, because this was a beautiful representation of a very small portion of Mexican culture. Also, like, the saints and all of that isn't necessarily just relegated to Mexican culture either. There are other cultures that are very, very tied to the church, such as the Irish culture. So we could go into that, but I don't know why all these people came over from Twitter to rate this book like 1 star. It was just stupid. I didn't get the sense at all that this book was appropriation or insensitive or anything like that. It was a beautiful book. So
cool.
Yeah, we just wanted to put our 2 cents out there.
Yeah. So. All right. Well, thank you for joining us, and
we'll see you in the next podcast.